Hello everyone, welcome to Marketing Research. This is chapter 10. In this chapter, let's talk about measurement and attitude scaling. Scaling of attitude, how to measure attitude, okay? Alright, after studying this chapter, you should be able to determine what things need to be measured to address research question. Okay? You can distinguish levels of a scale measurement. Okay? Create an index or composite measures, assess scale reliability and validity. Okay? Understand why the concept of attitude is so important in marketing research, and design a scale that measures an attitudinal concept. Implement our multi-attribute model. Okay? Anyone who has ever followed a recipe to cook something knows the importance of a good measurement, right? Maybe a cup of this, a tablespoon of that, a spatula full of this, things like that, right? Just as in culinary arts, researchers can measure business and marketing in more than one way. Okay? Of course, measuring items in business and marketing is probably more difficult than in cooking. Okay? Researchers often may have to use imperfect measurement devices because of complexity. We may not have the perfect measurement device like a scale or a spoon or a cup, right? Measure a concept poorly and the recipe is likely a disaster, likely disaster. I'm sure you can see that. Okay? Only in this case, the recipe is usually an important business decision poorly made instead of a ruined dish. Okay. So, what needs to be measured? Business and marketing concepts can often be measured in more than one way. Before the measurement process can be defined, the researchers have to decide exactly what it is that needs to be produced. The decision statement, corresponding research question, and the research hypothesis can be used to decide what concepts need to be measured. That's why in past chapters, I've always been talking about your research question and hypothesis, and by now your teams should have developed some of those, at least some of those research questions or research hypotheses that you want to test. Now, with that, you can decide what concepts need to be measured. Okay? Measurement. So, what is measurement? Measure something. Measurement, right? Measurement is a process of describing some property of a phenomenon of interest, usually by assigning numbers in a reliable and valid way. If we want to measure for example, the person's height, I measure my height. I think I'm 5'9" or 5'10". Okay, and yeah, you give my height a number, okay, a number, and that number it should be reliable and valid. It's valid meaning that I'm telling other people I'm 5'10", they know exactly how high I am. And if I measure again and again, or by different ways, I should come up with the same number. So it should be reliable and it should be valid. Okay. When numbers are used, the researchers must have a rule of assigning a number to an observation in a way to provides accurate description. You can see that. All measurement systems present the potential for error. You can see the error. I sometimes there's a bathroom scale in my my bathroom, and I weigh myself in the morning. Sometimes it gives different numbers. Right? They don't always give the exact same number. It's probably off by a little bit, maybe half a pound or so. Okay? Concepts. Right? What are concepts? The concept we want to measure. like attitude or certain other things. Okay? Concepts are generalized ideas that represent something of meaning. Right? Education is a concept, right? Customer loyalty is another concept. Right? Concepts such as age, sex, and number of children are relatively concrete properties and present few problems in either definition or measurement. Okay? Age, we can just use years. Sex or gender, we can just use male or female. Or number of children, you either have 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever. Okay? These are easy ones, right? Concrete and easy property. But what about the concepts such as brand loyalty? Right? Brand loyalty. How do you measure brand loyalty? Personality, and so on. Those are more abstract and are more difficult to both define and measure. Okay? Fortunately, many scholars, many researchers have developed skills to measure those things. And there are actually many scale books available in consumer studies and many other psychological studies you can find, we can use. Okay? I'll show you some examples in the slides, and there are some ones in the textbook. Okay? Operational definition. Researchers measure concepts through a process known as operationalization, because the measure concepts use a process called operationalization. That's a process that involves identifying scales that correspond to variance in the concept. A scale that can correspond to variance in the concept. A scale can provide a range of values that correspond to different values in the concept being measured. Okay? Like customer loyalty. It's very loyal, not so loyal, not loyal at all, for example. And your scale should give up different values corresponding to different level of the concept that you are measuring. Okay? Correspondence rules says that that indicate that a certain value on the scale corresponds to some true value of concept, hopefully in a truthful way. Okay? That's scale. Variables. We use variance in concepts to make diagnosis, and variables capture the different concept values. Variables capture the different concept values. Scales capture variance in concepts, and as such, the scale provides researchers variables. Okay? Once a research project is underway, there is a little difference between the concept and variable. Okay? We started out with the concept, and then we defined it using a certain scale, and then we call that the variable. Okay? Variables. Constructs. Sometimes we use constructs. That's a term used for concepts that are measured with multiple variables. We may use, because of reliability, to be sure we can use several variables to describe one concept. Then we call that constructs. Okay. Sometimes a single variable cannot capture a concept alone. Right? Then we use multiple. Using multiple variables to measure one concept can provide a more complete account of some concept than could any single variable. Okay? Operation definitions translate conceptual definitions into measurement scale. Okay? Level of scale measurement. Scale measurement. It is important because it determines the mathematical comparison that are allowed. There are 4 levels of scale measurement. Okay? Nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. You probably have studied this before in your statistics or other classes. Okay? There are 4 levels of scale measurement: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. What's nominal? Nominal basically represents the simplest type of scale and assign a value to an object for identification or classification purpose. Basically just gives it an ID, a name, right? Or a classification, put into a class. The value can be, but does not have to be a number, since no quantities are being represented. You can use 1, 2, 3 to identify that, or you can use ABC to identify that. Okay? It's a qualitative scale, right? Useful even though they can be considered elementary. Okay? Marketing researchers use nominal scales quite often. We use that all the time. And nominal scales is arbitrary in the sense that each label can be assigned to any of the categories without introducing an error. For example, the number on your uniforms and your student ID numbers, okay? And airports terminals. In Atlanta Airport, we have terminals A, B, C, D, E, and F, okay? And international. What is F in international? I forgot. Okay. Airport terminals. School bus numbers. The numbers on school bus, okay? It's just for identification purposes. Okay. Next is the ordinal scale. Ordinal scales have nominal properties. Okay, higher level scale always have the properties of the previous lower level scale. Okay? Ordinal is higher than nominal, have all the nominal properties, allow things to be arranged based on how much of some concept they possesses. Okay? Includes the ranking scales. The ranking scales. Okay? Are somewhat arbitrary. For example, win, place, and show in a horse race. In horse race, it tells which horse was first, second, and third, but does not tell by how much a horse won. Okay? It could be won by 2 horse length, or half, or or minimal, very minimal. Okay? Win, place, show. The next level is the interval. Higher level is the interval scales that have both nominal and ordinal properties. It captures information about differences in quantities of a concept. Okay? For example, Fahrenheit temperature scales. The temperature scale we use is either Fahrenheit or Celsius. Okay? These are interval scales. Good example of interval scales. But we cannot say, we know that for sure that 80 degree is hotter than 40 degree, right? It's hotter, but we cannot say, 80 degree is twice as hot. We cannot conclude that 40 degree is twice as cold as 80. We cannot say that. Okay? It is arbitrary. Okay? An illustration, you can convert temperature to Celsius scales using that. If you say 80 degree Fahrenheit, 40 degree Fahrenheit, you can convert it to Celsius is 26.7 and 44.4. You can see you lost that it's not as twice as much. Right? The interval scales do not exactly represent some phenomenon. Okay, be careful. The highest level measurement is called ratio scales. Ratio scales have all the properties of interval scales, with additional attributes of representing absolute quantities. Right? Represent absolute meaning. Right? It provides iconic measurements, right? And it has 0 is meaningful. 0 have its meaning in that it represents an absence of some concept. With 0, the measurement is 0. It means that the thing doesn't exist. Okay. An absolute 0 is a defining characteristic in determining between ratio and interval scales. Okay. For example, money is a way to measure economic value. It is a ratio scale. Okay. This chart shows a good illustration of the different scale levels. Right? And if you look at the first one on top, the horse number 7, this is just number 7. It's just a nominal scale, nominal measurement for identification. Right? In ordinal scales, you have win, place, and show. Okay? That shows the rank order, who is the first, second, third place. And interval scales not only show the rank order, but also show how far apart each one is. Like from the first one, the win to place is 1.0 second, but the place to show second and third place is 20 seconds apart. Right? And if someone bet on that, win 40 to 1 long shot, pays $80 using the dollar amount, that's a research skill. Okay? About 4 levels. Let me give you some examples. So different level of scales here. Okay, nominal scales. Example would be yes/no questions. Yes, no. Right? Female, male questions. Buy, did not buy. Postal zip code. Right? The numerical operation that you can do on those nominal measurements, just counting. You can count for frequencies. You can find the mode. What is the mode? The most frequently appearing ones. Okay. For ordinal scales, it's about ranking. Okay. You can choose, for example, choose from the following: dissatisfied, satisfied, very dissatisfied, to delighted. Okay. This rank order here of how happy or how satisfied you are with something. Or it can indicate, another example is your level of education. You can have high school diploma, some college, bachelor's degree, or graduate degree, right? More and more education. Right? For ordinal skills, the numerical operations that you can work on, you can do on this are counting and ordering. Okay? You can count frequencies, you can find the mode, you can find the median, you can find the range. Okay? That's nominal and ordinal. Okay? For interval, example of that is 100-point job performance ratings assigned by supervisors, 0 worst performers, 100 best performers. Okay, that'd be an interval one. Okay? For temperature type attitude scales, low temperature, bad attitude, high temperature, good attitude. Okay, and new operations you can use on those interval scale measurements, common arithmetic operations can all be done. Arithmetic can all be done. Like mean, median, variance, and standard deviation, you can do that. Okay. The ratio scale, the highest level amongst purchase salesperson sales volume, the whole ratio. Okay. Likelihood of performing some act, zeros, no likelihood, to 100, certainty. Okay. Number of stores visited, how many stores we visited. Time spent viewing a particular web page, 5 minutes or 2 hours, right? Number of web pages viewed, right? You can perform all arithmetic operations on ratio scale measurements. You can calculate means, median, variance, standard deviation, etc. Okay? Mathematical and statistical analysis skills. A researcher must know the meaning behind the numbers before useful conclusions can be drawn. You can see that, right? For example, averaging the numbers used to identify school bus is meaningless. Okay? It doesn't matter. Or you average the numbers on the school uniforms. It's meaningless. You don't want to do that. Okay? Discrete measures versus continuous measures. Discrete measures are the ones that take on only one of a finite numbers of values. It's most often used to present a classificatory variable, classifications. Okay? It does not represent intensity of measures. Common discrete scales include any yes/no question response, response or matching, etc. It can possess ordinal properties and nominal properties. The central tendency of a nominal or ordinal discrete measure is best captured by the mode. The mode, right? Compared with the discrete, there are also continuous measures, because you can assign values anywhere along some scale range in a place that corresponds to the intensity of some concept. Okay? Ratio measures are continuous measures. Okay? And market researchers generally treat interval scales with 5 or more categories as continuous. If you use a Likert scale with 5 or 7, items, we can normally treat that as interval scales, or we can treat that as continuous scales, continuous measures. Okay? Reliable and valid measures. An attribute is with the term attribute. An attribute is a single characteristic or fundamental feature of an object, person, situation, or issue. Okay? Attribute measure assessment is common in marketing research. Attribute assessment, okay, is about a single characteristic or fundamental feature of an object, a person, or a situation. The measure of attribute are often combined to represent some less concrete concept. Okay? There are also index and composite measures. Right? And multi-item instruments for measuring a construct are called index measures. Multi-item instruments for measuring a construct are called index measures or composite measures. Okay? So an index measure assigns a value based on how much of the concept being measured is associated with an observation. Okay? Indexes are often formed by putting several variables together. You know Dow Jones Industrial Average, right? The Dow Jones number, the stock to measure the stock market. They actually have 30 blue chip stocks, weighted average to get Dow Jones Industrial Average number that we hear in the news, financial news every day. And composite scales are also assign a value based on a mathematical derivation of multiple variables. Okay? Computing scale values are a summated scale is created by summing the response to each item making up the composite measures. You can sum it up. Okay? A researcher may sometimes choose to average the score rather than summing them because the composite measure is expressed on the same scale as in the item that make it up. Okay? Reverse coding. Sometimes we use reverse coding. Reverse coding means that the value assigned for a response is treated oppositely from the other items. Right? So you can use reverse coding sometimes to make sure that the respondent, is actually answering correctly or attentively instead of just randomly, putting marks on it. Okay? Here are some example of computing a composite score. Okay, for example, here it says from here SD is a strongly discrete, neutral, strongly agree, agree to strongly agree. Okay, and you can measure this trust score for this consumer. You can say the site appears to be more trustworthy than other sites I have visited. The person chose D. This side disagree here. My overall trust in this site is very high. He or she chose N, neutral. My overall impression of believability of the information on this site is very high. He chose D again. Okay? My overall confidence in the recommendation of the site is very high. D again. Okay? The company represented in this site delivers on its promises. He answered A. Okay? So to compute the scale values, SD is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, and 5. So therefore, this person, the trust score of this consumer is 23224, corresponding to this answer here. You get 13. That's the composite scale number of the trust score of this consumer. Okay. Reliability. In measuring, you want the measurement to be reliable. Okay? What is reliability? Reliability is an indicator of a measure's internal consistency. If it's reliable, it means that it's consistent again and again and again, right? It's like you measure, you use a bathroom scale to weigh yourself. If you weigh yourself, 5 times, they all come out with very close to each other and the same number, then it's reliable. Right? So indicator of measures internal consistency. A measure is reliable when different attempts at measuring something converge on the same result. That's reliable. Okay? When the measuring process provides reproducible results, the measuring instrument is reliable. Reproducible results. Okay? Is reliable. Okay? Internal consistency. When we call internal consistency, it represents the measure's homogeneity. Is homogeneous. Okay? Internal consistency of multiple item measure can be measured by correlating the scores on subsets of items making up a scale. Okay? You can use like multiple measures here. Okay? You can see if they correlate with each other. Split half method of checking reliability is often used. You split measures by a half and a half, right? First half and second half, and you see if they correspond to each other. Okay? Correlate with each other. Take half the item from the scale and checking them against the rest of, from the other half. Okay? The two scales have halves. Halves should correlate highly, okay? And should produce similar scores. Okay? Then we can say it's highly reliable. Okay? We use coefficient alpha to do that. Okay? Basically, you say you would divide the measurements into two halves. You have many ways to do that. Right? You can take the first 50 and second 50 if you have 100 total, or you may say you have to take the first 25, and then another 25, right? And the third 25, compared with the two second and fourth, right? That's another way. So you have many ways to split half the numbers. If in calculating coefficient alpha, you can do all possible split half reliabilities. You do all possible ways to split half the measures, and you calculate its reliabilities. You come up with the coefficient alpha or Cronbach's alpha. Okay? So coefficient alpha represents internal consistency by computing an average of all possible split half reliabilities for multiple item scales. Right? The coefficient demonstrates whether or not different items converge. Okay? It ranges in value from 0 to no consistency to 1 to complete consistency. Okay? And if you have coefficient alpha of 0.8 to 0.96, we normally say that's a very good reliability. 0.7 to 0.8, good reliability. 6 to 7, fair reliability. Okay? Below 6, poor reliability. Okay? Test-retest reliability. Test-retest reliability. The test-retest method of determining reliability involves administering the same scale or measure to the same respondent. Sorry, myself, my series. The test-retest methods of determining reliability involves administering the same scale or measure to the same respondents at two separate times to test for stability. Okay, that's test-retest reliability. If the measure is stable over time, the test administered under the same conditions each time should obtain similar results. So you have high test-retest reliability. Okay, it represents a measure's repeatability. It's repeatable. Repeatability. Okay. Reliability is a necessary but insufficient condition for validity. Okay? It's just because you're reliable doesn't mean it's valid. Okay? For example, my bathroom scales, if you can give me very reliable numbers every day, if it says 250 pounds every time, all the time, is reliable, but it may not be valid. It may be off, because I'm not weighing that much, right? So if it's so reliability is necessary but insufficient condition for validity. A reliable scale may not be valid. Keep that in mind, okay? A reliable but invalid instrument will yield consistently inaccurate results. Either it's biased toward high or low, okay? It's off. Next, let's talk about validity. Valid, whether the measurement is valid. A good measure should be both precision is reliability, okay? And accurate. Accuracy is validity. Remember to differentiate between reliability and accuracy. Okay, precision and accuracy. Okay, validity is the accuracy of a measure or the extent to which some score truthfully represent a concept. Okay, so it's valid. Okay, achieving validity is not a simple matter. It addresses the problem whether a measure indeed measures what it's supposed to measure. Okay? When the measure lacks validity, any conclusion based on the measure are also likely to be not good. Okay? How do you establish validity? Okay? There are three approaches to establishing validity. First is the face validity or content validity. Refers to the subjective agreement among professionals that the scale logically reflects the concept being measured. It's face validity. Okay? There's a criterion validity that addresses the question, does my measure correlate with the measures of similar concepts or known quantities? Okay? It's called criterion validity. And may be classified as either concurrent validity or predictive validity. Okay? And the third approach to establishing validity is constructability. Okay? What's constructability? Constructability exists when the measure reliably measure and truthfully represent a unique concept and consists of several components. Right? It has face validity, criterion validity, and conversion validity, and discriminant validity. Conversion validity meaning all the measurements converge to the same level, true level. Discriminant validity means that if you're measuring something else, right, it gives out a different number, right? So it has discriminant validity and fit validity, fit your models. Okay? Reliability versus validity. The difference between the two are illustrated with the rifle targets. Okay, let's look at the example here. Okay. The shots from the older shotguns are scattered. You have an old shotgun. Okay, the shots are scattered. You can say that it's not reliable. It has a low reliability. The shots from a newer gun are closely clustered on a target. You can say it has higher reliability and even validity. Okay, shotgun from a newer gun are closely clustered but off target. Then you say even though the reliability is good, but validity is not good. So it has high reliability but low validity. Okay. In this example here, old rifle here, low reliability, scattered all over the place. Okay, new rifles, high reliability, very condensed all together. Right? And this one also has good validity. If a new rifle here, all the shots are over here, it's pretty reliable, right? They're all together, okay, close together, but it's not valid. It's off the target, right? It's off the center. Then in that case, probably there is some systematic error you can adjust. You can adjust the sight or you can adjust the barrel, move the barrel, then aim at it. Okay, it shows reliability and validity. Okay. Now let's talk about attitude. One major attitude, right? Attitude. What's an attitude? Attitude. We all have attitudes, right? We all have attitudes. We have certain attitudes. Okay. An attitude is an enduring disposition to respond consistently in a given manner to various aspects of the world, including persons, events, and objects. That's attitude. Enduring disposition to respond consistently in a given manner to various aspects of the world. including persons, events, and objects. That's our attitude toward the person, toward the event, or toward an object. Okay? There are three components of attitude. Okay? There's the affective component. Affective component, especially how much affinity someone has toward the relevant matter. You know, your emotions. Okay? There's a cognitive component. It represents the individual's awareness of the relevant matter, cognitions. Okay? And also there's a behavior component that represents the action that corresponds to a certain type of attitude. Because of a certain attitude you have, you may take certain action. There's a behavior component, okay, in attitude. Okay? Attitude measures and scaling. A remarkable variety of techniques has been devised to measure attitudes, stemming in part from lack of consensus about the exact definition of the concept. Okay? The affective, cognitive, and behavioral components of attitudes may be measured by different means, that is, direct or indirect, say physiological to verbal, etc. Okay? Physiological measures. Researchers may assess the affective or emotional components of attitude through physiological measures. Okay? For example, galvanic skin response, skin conductivity, electric conductivity, blood pressure, magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, and pupil dilation. Okay? And these measures provide a means of assessing effects without verbally questioning the respondent. Okay? It's a gross measure like a dislike. You know, I like a dislike. They're not extremely sensitive to different gradient of attitude. Okay? Self-report skills. Self-report involve gaining a respondent's structural response to some specific query or stimulus. Okay? Researchers can ask respondents to rank, to rate, to sort, or choose one of multiple responses. Okay? A ranking test, you can ask them to do ranking. Okay? A ranking test requires respondents to rank order a small number of stores, brands, feelings, or objects based on overall preference or of some characteristic of the stimulus. You can ask them to rank them, right? Ranking provides ordinal measurement. Remember that. Measuring affect component. This one shows an approach to ask the respondent to rate their effect toward an object. Yeah? Respondent asked to choose a mannequin from each of three rows to show the general affective state, like or dislike, the degree to which they get emotionally aroused, and how much the things being rated makes them feel small or important, unimportant or important. Okay. There's an example here, right? Showing that happy, not happy, okay? Excited or indifferent, right? Make them feel unimportant to important. You can use that. This is a novel approach to reading affect. Okay. Category skills. Category skills are reading skills that consist of several response categories, often providing respondents with alternatives to indicate positions on a continuum. Okay? It's ordered categories based on a particular descriptive or evaluative dimension that can provide further information. Give an example here, quality. Okay? These are commonly applied category skill descriptions. Quality. You can say, you know, excellent, good, fair, and poor. Okay? Very good, fairly good, neither good nor good, nor bad. No, sorry, not very good or not good at all. Okay? You can also measure quality well above average, average, below average, well below. Okay? Importance from very important to not at all important to neutral. Interest, very interested, not very interested, somewhat interested. Okay? Satisfaction, completely satisfied to completely dissatisfied, and with neither in the middle, and somewhat on both sides. Okay? very satisfied, quite satisfied, somewhat satisfied, not at all satisfied. You can see there are examples of category scales that you can use in your paper, in your project, okay? Here are some examples of a frequency. All the time, very often, often, sometimes, hardly ever. Very often, sometimes, rarely, never. And all of the time, most of the time, some of the time, just now and then. Okay? Truth, very true, somewhat true, not very true, not at all true. Okay? And uniqueness, very different to not at all different. Yeah. These are some examples here. I'm not reading all of them. Okay. Likert scale. You've all heard of a Likert scale. It's very strong, often commonly used. Okay? Respondents indicate their attitude by checking how strongly they agree or disagree with carefully constructed statements ranging from very positive to very negative attitudes. We can use a Likert scale. Individuals generally choose from approximately 5, sometimes 5 or 7. Okay. For example, strongly agree, agree, uncertain, disagree, strongly disagree. Okay, that's 5 items. You can add the 7th one. You can assign scores to each positive response, so 1 to 5 respectively. So, and you can calculate the scores. Attitude scores are at best interval and not racial. Yeah, and not racial. Okay. Semantic differential scales. That's a scale type that has respondents describe their attitude using a series of bipolar rating scales. Using a series of bipolar rating scale. What's a bipolar adjective? Such as good and bad, right? Modern, old-fashioned, clean and dirty, okay? And anchor both ends of scale. So you can have an anchor, good and bad, ask them to choose somewhere in the middle, okay? And semantic differential shows and meanings. The validity of semantic differential depends on finding scale anchors that are semantic opposites. You can find semantic opposite ones and anchors. This example of semantic differential scales. How does the Cheerios ad make you feel? How does the ad make you feel? Use the scale below to indicate your feelings. Sad, happy, you can choose one in the middle. Pleased, displeased, depressed, cheerful, good or bad. Okay, you can choose between them. Okay. Constant sum scale. Sometimes we use constant sum scale. That's with the constant sum scale, respondents are asked to divide a fixed number of points among several attributes to indicate their relative importance, but they add together as the same number, as same total. If respondents follow the instructions correctly, the results will approximate interval measures. Okay, the scale is flawed because the last response is completely determined by the way the respondent has scored the other choices. Okay. Also, graphic rating scale. When you use graphic rating scale, it presents respondents with a graphic continuum. Respondents are allowed to choose any point on the continuum to indicate their attitude. There's a way to determine the respondent's score. Measures the length in millimeters from one end of the continuum to the point marked by the respondent. You can divide a line into predetermined scoring categories or length and record the respondent's marks accordingly. Okay? The advantage allows researchers to choose any intervals for the purpose of scoring. Okay? This example here showing graphic rating scales. Seating comfort, for example. Please evaluate each attribute in terms of how important it is to you by placing an X at a position on the horizontal line that most reflects your feeling. Seating comfort. Is seating comfort important or not important to you? You can choose somewhere in between. Okay? In-flight meals. This is about flying, right? Not important to very important. Airfare. Not important to air, very important. Okay? And here is another using scale below to indicate how well each adjective describes the wine you just sampled. You sample some wine, and is it unique or not? Does not describe or describe very well. You can choose move the bar to where it indicates your agreement or disagreement. Right? Uniqueness, authentic, good finish, complex, good bouquet, expensive, etc. Okay? This is using face scale to assess the attitude. And respondents, how pleased are you with the breakfast item at McDonald's? Okay? You can move the bar to the right, it becomes a happy face. You can move the bar to the left, you see a sad face. You can move that to reflect your feeling or your emotions. Okay? Ranking scale. Consumers often rank order their preferences. Right? This is the ordinal scale, may be developed by asking respondents to rank order from most preferred to least preferred a set of objects or attributes. The ranking scale suffers from inflexibility in that if we know how someone ranked 5 out of 6 alternatives, we know the answer to the 6. Okay. You can see that. Paired comparisons. We use paired comparisons. In paired comparisons, respondents are presented with 2 objects at a time and ask them to pick the one they prefer. Pick 2. Which one do they prefer? And then pick another 2 and ask them which one do they prefer. Okay? Ranking objects with respect to one attitude is not difficult if only a few products are compared. But the number of items increases, the number of comparisons increase geometrically. Okay? So if the number of comparison is too large, respondents may fatigue, may no longer carefully discriminate among them. You cause them to be tired. They just not be doing well. You can use balanced or unbalanced rating scales. The fixed alternative format may be balanced or unbalanced. A balanced scale has equal number of positive and negative categories and the neutral point. That's balanced. Okay? An unbalanced scale, because we can use unbalanced scales. Unbalanced rating scales have more respondents categories at the one end than the other. Could be the positive end or could be negative end. Okay? The choice generally depends on the concept or the researcher's knowledge about the attitude toward the stimulus to be measured, depending on your need, basically. Right? There's also the forced choice scales. Right? In many situations, the respondent has not formed an attitude toward the concept. If a forced choice rating scale compels the respondent to answer, the response is merely a function of the question. It's only a function of the question. Okay? If answers are not forced, the midpoint of scale may be used by the respondent to indicate unawareness as well as indifference. Okay? Also, in many respondents, if many respondents are expected to be unaware of the attitude in the object, the problem may be eliminated by using a no opinion category. Right? Single or multiple items. You want to use single or multiple items? It depends on the complexity of the issue to be investigated, the number of dimensions the issues contain, okay? The level of abstraction of the phenomenon. Okay? Your conceptual definition will be helpful in making this choice using single or multiple. Okay? Attitudes and intentions. Attitudes are considered a function of a person's beliefs about some activity, weighted by their evaluation of those characteristics. Okay? Are considered a function of a person's beliefs about some activity, weighted by their evaluation of those characteristics. Research in this area is sometimes referred to as a multi-attribute model or reasoned action approach. Attribute model. Behavior intention. Intentions represent the behavior expectation of individuals toward the attitudinal object. Your intention, your purchase intention, for example, shopping intention. Okay? The component of interest to marketer is buying intention or purchase intention. Is a tendency to seek additional information for plans to visit the showroom. That's a buying intention. Okay. Category scores for measuring behavioral component of attitude ask about the respondent's likelihood of purchase or intention to perform some future actions. For example, how likely is it that you will purchase? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's a behavior intention question.